I am going to bring Roy Barzilla on with us. He is an independent scholar. He lives in Israel. As a financial analyst for over a decade, Roy became aware of the cycles that drive financial markets, which prompted him to study how changes in social mood affect society, its ideas, culture, and economy. His perspective is interdisciplinary, merging history, biology, neuroscience, and philosophy to reach a greater understanding of the human mind and the cycles of human civilization. He holds an undergraduate degree from Tel Aviv University in law, accounting, and computer science. He's the author of 3 books and many, many articles. I want you to check him out on Facebook and all of his social media. He has written 3 books. Here's the titles. Look them up. They're all on Amazon. Sex Wars, How Hormones Drive Gender, Race, and Culture Conflicts. The Testosterone Hypothesis, How Hormones Regulate the Life Cycles of Civilization. And The Objective Bible, Western Civilization's Struggle for Philosophic Liberation from a Herd Mentality and Pagan Mysticism. Welcome, Roy. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
So tell me a little bit about, in the States, and I believe it's all around the world, we are struggling with this kind of emasculination of men. And I do not think that that is good for our society. So let me ask you, your most recent book, The Sex Wars, what are those wars and how are they showing up in our culture today?
Well, in our society today, we are seeing a growing ideological divide and a political polarization between the right and the left. And I believe we can attribute this to gender differences that shape the model of organization of our culture. What I mean is that what you see the feminist side, the split across the gender line, exhibits how sexual relationship is determining how we model our society. You see in the Hillary, the feminist, more communist ideal. They seek more to break down the family and to achieve a more collectivized society like a communist utopia. Versus the masculine side of the Republican Party, to the Trump presidency, is more concerned with securing national borders, the interests of the American people. And there's sort of a cultural divorce here, a split, a schism in the civilization that is very similar to a divorce that is going on in the general culture, therefore in the fall of the family structure, the traditional marriage between a man and a woman. So I think it's all related to the sexual organization of our society is to a large extent controlled and regulated by sex hormone, primarily testosterone. And it's important to understand how testosterone and sex hormone shapes our culture. The problem is the academic establishment is now fully controlled by radical feminist and cultural Marxist ideologies, and they are covering up these trends, these biological trends, the collapse in testosterone levels that we're seeing, causing lack of gender identity, transgender movement, the rise of homosexual marriage, and these all cause a great conflict and political strife in our society.
Absolutely. I love that you use the term a cultural divorce because there really is a schism. There's a great divide between the feminist movement that started in our country in the 60s and these, I call them fake feminists. The feminists of the 60s are doing exactly what you talk about. They are man haters. They are communists. They want a collective society. We're seeing them as irrationally angry. They're irrationally violent. And I believe, as you do, that what was so attractive to, I think, millions of us in the United States, and actually a million across the world, what is so attractive to us about President Trump and the people that he has put in leadership is that they are real men. They are leading. They are giving their country security. They want to protect us. And of course, that trickles right down into the homes, into the families. We haven't had in this country a real masculine leader in many, many years. And so I think that we're seeing this trickle down effect where you have men in the homes that are saying, wow, it is okay for me to have this testosterone pumping through my body. You know, this is how God made me. I believe in God. So this is how God made men. But if you're an atheist, you believe in survival of the fittest. So you believe that men have testosterone and women have estrogen, and men should be using and embracing that in testosterone because it makes you unique, you know, and it makes you want to protect what you have. So I agree with you. I think that the feminist movement is wrong for America and actually wrong for the world, I would say. And I'm curious, I know quite a few men reach out to me and say, the feminist movement, the fake feminists, have done such harm to me as a male that I feel depressed, I feel anxious, I feel sad, I feel hated. These boys have been bullied in school by feminist teachers, and it's really wrong. It's morally wrong, and I'd like to know your thoughts on that. I believe that feminine women, let's just I'm going to call us real feminists. I believe that women are different from men. Of course, we're equal, but we're different, and we should be applauding those differences and using those differences. Women should be helping men, and men should be helping women in our differences. What have you discovered in your research?
Absolutely. I think if we study the recent modern civilization, our history since the Enlightenment, the age of the Enlightenment in which the founding fathers were English Puritans came to the United States, and this was a masculine culture. The ideal was family values, and you see it in the Declaration of Independence, where the ideal is that man is created in the image of God the Father yes. of mankind, and this is also a family ideology, even in the theology, because God created men and women to join together in marriage. So yes. This is the masculine, and it was an exceptionally optimistic culture because they see man as a rational animal that's at the age of reason, of the Enlightenment. And the ideals are pursuit of happiness. You see life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They seek happiness. On the opposite side, you see the feminist culture in the 20th century with the radical waves of feminism in the 1920s, in the 1970s, and today they are all very depressed. They're very hateful. They're yes. resentful. They have high degrees of depression and anxiety. There's a medical literature now that antidepressant use is up by 400% over the last 2 decades. 400% rise.
Wow.
And most of it is consumed by middle-aged women. They are actually very resentful, and this is very, very sad because they are actually the biggest victims of this trend. So I suppose I propose that the origin of the crisis in the collapse of testosterone and serotonin, they are very important, both males and females. And the males have higher levels of testosterone and serotonin, so they are less prone to depression and anxiety than women. And that's why you have twice as many women in the middle age, in around 40. That women take much more antidepressants, twice as many as men. So the problem is the academic establishment is controlled by radical feminists, and they don't want to recognize the importance of testosterone and serotonin in sexual behavior, in our social mood, how we have gender relations. And nobody is addressing these issues of testosterone decline and serotonin decline because of this radical feminist agenda that controls our social sciences and biology. So I think they are not presented with proper cures, and this causes a really big problem in the health industry, because all this antidepressant use has a lot of side effects, and the real causes are not addressed. This is the main problem. We need more masculine leadership also in the science community, in the universities. We need more Republicans' voices, more right-wing people in the universities, so we can have a more heterodox academy where we can discuss these issues openly and not let the radical feminists shut down the debate. That's very important for the progress of our science and our health and medical establishment.
If you're just joining me now, this is CARLA DADDESI, 1180 WFYL. I'm here with Roy Barzilai. He is an independent scholar. He lives in Israel. He's an author, and he's an all-around genius, I think, with what he is coming up with. You need to get all of his books, The Sex Wars, The Testosterone Hypothesis, and he's really speaking truth today. The fake feminists from the 60s and the 20s are really destroying our culture. They're destroying our way of life. They're destroying our families, because they're pretending to be something that they are not. And that is, they're pretending to be men, and they can't be men. We can't be men. And many of us that are women, our voices are more quiet, Roy, like my voice, and we're starting to be louder because we realize that the feminists are destroying our families, destroying our country, destroying our little boys, destroying our little girls. And so we're coming out and we're saying, reject this. And I think it's really interesting that you say 400% increase in depression and the use of antidepressants in the middle-aged women. And I think it might be because they're trying to be something that they're not, and they're not being content with whom they're supposed to be, with how they've been made. So I have a question for you. In America today, we hear a lot about this so-called toxic masculinity. You hear this all over the place, toxic masculinity, and the problems that are allegedly caused by high testosterone males. But in your book, you use scientific studies to argue that it's actually declining testosterone that leads to a more violent society. Can you answer that for us?
Yes, of course. The feminist-influenced academia over the last 40 years has nurtured the myth that the condition of maleness itself is synonymous with increased violence, or male competitive drive is violent. But that's absolutely wrong. But in eras when testosterone levels are healthy in a society, such as the Enlightenment period of the founding fathers of the United States, the values of independence and individual liberty are strong. Spirit of liberty, self-responsibility, entrepreneurial spirit and creativity, productivity, rationality are encouraged, and competitive drives our economic growth, leads to advances that aid all humanity in medicine, technology, living conditions. On the other hand, when testosterone declines in society, humans are more prone, as we see today, to bind together in fear, driven by bonding hormone oxytocin that promotes groupthink, ethnocentrism, and we see a rise in race wars, race conflict, blacks against whites. We see a rise in communism, is class warfare, gender promotes sex warfare, women against men. Our entire society is being split apart across so many lines, gender, race, class wars, rich against the poor, like with Bernie Sanders, communism, Marxist warfare. So we have a heightening opposition to other groups. And we see this in many scientific studies about the ethnocentrism is caused by this over social bonding, when we don't see people as individuals made in the image of God, but as belonging to identity groups that are in conflict with each other all the time. It's all about warfare, opposing to the founding fathers' ideal of peace, prosperity, and happiness. So actually, the decline in testosterone levels, I suggest, is at the root of the growing divide today, and polarization and conflict in society. And these are times when humans are susceptible to ideologies like communism and despotic fascist leaders like Hitler or Stalin, yes, or communism. And
Yes.
we are battling here very severe forces. We have to understand the biology, the dynamics, the human psychology, how it all works together with philosophy. And the problem is that we have to bring this knowledge to the academia, which is now not very open to orthodox ideas.
That's right. We actually have a few universities in the United States that have stuck to the founding fathers' principles that were made in the image of God. And they are actually exploding with people that are applying there, these young kids, because in the United States, we have a walk away movement. I don't know whether you've been following that, where there's these young kids that were believing the dangerous ideology of the left, of the liberals, and they finally woke up and they're walking away from that, and they want to go back to truth and logic and reasoning and common sense and facts. Really, these kids are not stupid. And so they're starting to apply to some of these very conservative universities. And we can only pray that these universities that continue to force our children to believe lies and a liberal agenda and hateful speech, that they're going to go bankrupt and they're going to close. So it might be discouraging for people to learn that these highs and lows of human culture are driven by hormonal cycles. Doesn't that mean it's really out of our control, Roy?
Well, actually, the reason of my work, my primary reason for presenting this theory is to encourage people to understand these forces of history so that we can bring our God-given rational minds to come up with solutions. And we are brilliant creatures. We have great technological abilities, with intellectual creativity. We have modern science and technology. And we can transcend biological determinism. We are not bound by instincts like lower animals. That's the God-given worldview, right. The biblical worldview from Genesis.
That's right. We've been created differently from those animals. We shouldn't be acting like them, though I'd like to tell you, I think the liberals in this country are acting like animals. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's when you take the natural view to overextend it and do not realize that we are also a rational man. And
that's right. That's right. The natural has become unnatural for the left.
Yes, right. Actually, I think we should reclaim biology and science. The right should, because up until during the Enlightenment, the English Puritans were the great philosopher, the biblical worldview, like Sir Isaac Newton, Francis Bacon, yes. The father of the empirical science, and they didn't see any split between science and Judeo-Christian ideas and philosophy. The split only began with Darwin, when biology and evolution became opposite with religion, with Christianity and Judaism. But now we have the opportunity to reclaim science and biology, because now there is a war on biology coming from the left. They believe that gender is not biological anymore. It's nothing to do with testosterone. It's all a social construct. They have this all delusional bias.
Isn't that wild? That's something else that we've been battling here in the States, and I've been personally battling. There are absolutely only two genders, Roy. There is male and there's female. There is no blur. It doesn't matter what you change the outer appearance to look like. You are either male or female.
That's right. We have to address these problems, and the hormonal balance is also very important, because in each of us we need both of some of the female characteristics of empathy. Social bonding is very important in females, and that's what makes our society so great, that we can cooperate across millions of people and entire civilization work together. That's the female element, like the yin and yang, and then you have the masculine element that's more systematized and more concerned with reality, engineering, science, and technology. And we need this balance between the masculine and feminine in our society. This hormonal balance is crucial. And actually, a professor of sociology from the London School of Economics, Christopher Badcock, has theorized that what's going on when you have only the extreme feminine brain, as we have today, the radical feminist hate movement, They move to a paranoid schizophrenic mode, like you see today with all this hysteria about Trump having this fake news and Russia collision, all these crazy conspiracy theories on the left. It's associated with paranoid schizophrenic psychotic mind, because we are lacking the hormonal balance with the higher testosterone and serotonin levels of the males. It's more mental health, and we need the balance between the male and the female. The female side is very important for social bonding, for working together, cooperating in large groups. So when we have this balance between the masculine and the feminine in the culture, our culture is healthy. But when we go too far on one side, like the feminist movement is currently happening, and it also happened in the 1920s, by the way. There was a rising wave of feminism back then. There was in Weimar, Germany, you see in Berlin, there was a homosexual movement. There were Nazis, communists fighting in the street. Our culture today is very much similar to the 1920s culture in Weimar, Berlin, that led to the rise of Nazism and communism. And it was a pagan culture. They rebelled against the authority of Judeo-Christian scriptures, of the idea that man is made in the image of God, and they started fighting the Nazis against the Jews and against the Russians. They thought there was a master race and the low race. All this biological deterministic view of humanity is very dangerous.
Yes, very dangerous. And I keep thinking over and over that when people reject God's natural law, it ends in utter and mass confusion and chaos. And when I think of the radical feminist hate movement, that's exactly what they are. I look at them and I think they're so confused. What do they want? What is their mission? They can't even articulate what they want other than hate and violence. And when you see some of them walking around, when you see these poor kids that think they're boys, that think they're girls, that they don't know what they are, it's just utter confusion. And I wonder if you've come across anything about the feminists believe it is okay, and the liberals and the lefts think that it is okay, Roy, to give boys during puberty who think they are girls enormous levels of estrogen every single solitary day. I believe that that is very harmful and very dangerous to those little boys. And in the same way, the little girls who think or feel like they're boys, to give a little girl testosterone every day for the rest of her life. Isn't there huge implications, dangerous implications in that?
Absolutely. I think it's very dangerous, and I think what the feminists want is actually to castrate society. They're against the masculine element. They want a radical feminist, communist utopia. So because they equate the masculinity with toxicity. And we can refer to the work of the great Harvard biologist and the arts researcher, ant researcher, E.O. Wilson. And he's done great work on the synthesis of biology and social behavior. He studied the ultra-social species of ants, which are very much resembling humans in their ability to cooperate in a large group in the nest. And what we see in the ants, that's a really feminist communist utopia, because they're all females. They serve the queen. The queen is the only one who reproduces, and the ants are all sterile. And what Wilson said about that, by the way, he was raised a Southern Baptist, so he's not a communist. He said Karl Marx was right. Socialism works. It just that he had the wrong species. It worked for ants, because ants are all female society. There are no males there. But we are a human society. We have both male and female, and we work together through the family structure and have reproductive independence. We don't have to serve the queen.
Right. I think that I might be wrong, but I think it's the bees, the queen bee. Is it the bees that make the honey that have the feminine society, or is it the ants also? I didn't realize.
Actually, they're both.
Wow, I did not. That is a brilliant. That's quite interesting. I'm going to use that. I'm going to take that from you, Roy. So We are finished. By the way, I'm going to Israel with my family in the next year, and I would love for my husband to meet you and get together. That would just be great.
Oh, wonderful. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'll keep in touch with you. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from Israel this morning. Please tell us how we can buy all of your books and how we can keep in touch with you. Do you have a website? Are you on Twitter?
Yes, I have a website. It's called testosteronecivilization.com, testosteronecivilization, one word.com, and you can buy my books are all on Amazon, also available in a printed edition and digital edition.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning.